50 Cent and the Game were once close friends who made hit records together. They could have ran the whole industry, but then they sparked a shocking beef that led to diss tracks, fistfights, and shootouts. And today we're breaking down the entire crazy story. 50 first met Game through Dr. Dre back in 2003. Eminem first discovered 50 Cent in 2002 after hearing his mixtape, Guess Who's Back, and invited him out to LA to meet Dre. Not long after that, 50 signed a $1 million deal with Shady and Aftermath. Dre also discovered the Game around the same time after hearing one of his early mixtapes and signed him to Aftermath in 2003. By then, 50 and his group G Unit already had a major buzz after dropping the mixtape No Mercy, No Fear. So, Dre came up with the idea to add the Game to G Unit. Dre thought G Unit could help Game create some buzz, and having a West Coast artist in the group would attract a whole new fan base. So he started bringing Game to the studio to work with 50 on his first album, Get Rich or Die Trying. The move made perfect sense on paper, but Dre had no idea that putting two of rap's biggest personalities in a group together would turn into one of the most heated beefs in rap history. At first, everything was cool. The Game had a cameo in the video for 50 Cent's hit song, In the Club. Years later, his manager Wack 100 even claimed that Game wrote some of 50's early hits, like What Up Gangsta. 50 denied it and also took credit for writing some of the Game's biggest songs. So, it's hard to know who wrote what, but around that time, they were all helping each other write music. Get Rich or Die Trying was a huge success and sold over 870,000 copies the first week. Since then, it's also gone 9 times platinum, and some consider it one of the greatest rap albums ever. G Unit also had another hit later that year with Beg for Mercy, but Game wasn't on that project because he joined the group after the recording was done. Over the next few years, Game built up his image by appearing in G Unit music videos and doing features on their mixtapes. At the same time, he was working on his debut album, The Documentary. 50 and Dr. Dre were both heavily involved in making the album as well. When the documentary eventually dropped in 2005, 50 was featured on 3 of the main singles, West Side Story, Hate It or Love It, and How We Do. The documentary was an instant success and sold over 586,000 copies in the first week. Even though it didn't sell as much as Get Rich or Die Trying, it still did numbers and made Game the new face of the West Coast. It was a huge win for Aftermath, but nobody knew that it would be Game's only project on the label. Everything between the Game and 50 started to fall apart before the documentary even dropped. Even though 50 had a big role in helping the Game blow up, he started to feel threatened by having another star in G Unit. 50 was the leader of the group, but Game also knew he brought a lot to the table and had the potential to also be a superstar. They made great music together, but their egos started getting in the way until eventually one of them had to go. The beef really started while 50 and Game were working on the documentary. 50's second album, The Massacre, had to be pushed back so the Game could drop. There were also talks about putting Hate It or Love It on The Massacre because 50 wrote the hook in his own verse, which was most of the song, but the track ended up going on the documentary. 50 was pressed about the whole situation, and it didn't take long for the beef to go public. There's even a scene in the video for Hate It or Love It where the Game is driving a car and 50 is rapping from the back seat. According to rumors, this was intentional because 50 refused to sit next to Game since he was the one driving. It also didn't help that 50 started having problems with Dr. Dre and his business partner, Jimmy Iovine. 50 was mad that he didn't have the full creative control and couldn't drop music whenever he wanted. 50 also felt like he was the bigger artist, but he was getting pushed to the side so the label could promote the Game. Then, street politics got in the way, and the relationship was basically done for good. In an interview with DJ Vlad, Tony Yayo from G Unit claimed the beef between 50 and the Game really started because of a dude named Jimmy Henchman. Jimmy Henchman is a former music executive and drug trafficker who's currently serving a life sentence for putting a hit on a G Unit affiliate named Lodi Mac in 2009. Before going to prison, Jimmy Henchman owned a management company called Czar Entertainment that represented artists like Sean Kingston, Gucci Mane, and The Game. Jimmy Henchman's problems with G Unit started because of their relationship with another music industry executive named Chris Lighty. Chris Lighty owned a management and marketing company that worked with a lot of big names in hip-hop, including 50 Cent. According to Tony Yayo, Jimmy Henchman was jealous of Chris Lighty and wanted to be just like him. But Jimmy Henchman was really a street dude at heart who was trying to go legit. Chris Lighty had way more power in the music industry and worked with huge names like Nas, LL Cool J, and Diddy. G Unit stayed loyal to Chris Lighty, which turned into a beef with Jimmy Henchman. That all put Game in the middle and hurt his relationship with the rest of G Unit. Plus, at the time, 50 was already deep into his beef with Ja Rule. 50 Cent started attacking anyone Ja associated with, including Fat Joe, Nas, and Jadakiss. Fat Joe and Jadakiss appeared on the Ja Rule song New York in 2004. 50 was pressed about them linking up with his op, so he took shots at Jadakiss and Fat Joe on the song Piggy Bank and rapped, "Got 100 guns, 100 clips, why I don't hear no shots? That fat nigga thought Lean Back was in the club. My shit sold 11 mil, his shit was a dud. Jada don't fuck with me if you wanna eat, cause I'll do your ass like Jada Mobb Deep. Yeah, homie, in New York, niggas like your vocals. But that's only New York, dog. Your ass is local." Nas and his wife Khalees also got called out because Nas was close to the crew at Murder Inc. So on Piggy Bank, 50 rapped, "Khalees said her milkshake bring all the boys to the yard, then Nas went and tattooed the bitch on his arm." At first, the game was down the ride for the team and took plenty of shots at Ja Rule, but when 50 started going after everyone, the game wasn't down for the smoke. The game admits he grew up listening to Nas and considered Fat Joe and Jadakiss legends, so he didn't feel like he could start dissing rappers who inspired him like that, especially when he didn't have any real reason to beef with them.
Well, the truth was, as I grew up, I came up in my teenage years on Nas, so I couldn't beef with Nas. I didn't have no beef with Nas, and even though I usually get down with whatever's going on, I just wasn't down with beefing with niggas that shaped my career and made me want to rap. I couldn't do it.
But 50 expected everyone in G Unit to stand behind him no matter who he had problems with. Game had his own career to think about and didn't want to burn too many bridges with people he considered legends. 50 wasn't happy at all about this, and it all started to unfold when Game went on Funkmaster Flex's radio show on Hot 97 and announced that he wasn't getting involved with any of 50's beefs. A few days later, 50 appeared on the same show and announced that Game was no longer a part of G Unit and he needed to stop claiming the group. 50 also said that his personal involvement in Game's album, The Documentary, saved the Game from getting dropped by Aftermath, and that the Game owed 50 his entire career. While 50 was still at the radio station, Game's crew showed up and tried to confront him. They were stopped by security and G-Unit associates, which led to a fight in front of the building. An affiliate of the Game named Kevin Reed ended up getting shot in the leg by security, while 50 and the rest of G-Unit ran out the back door. But even though the beef was heating up and someone just got shot, 50 and the Game tried to squash the beef early on and put it behind them. A few weeks later, they both appeared on stage together at an event in Harlem and agreed they'd handle their issues like men. They both shook hands, and the Game even put out a statement that said, 50 and I are proving that real situations and real problems can be solved with real talk. But the truce wouldn't last long, and within a few weeks, they were both back to dissing each other. The rest of G-Unit started questioning the Game's street cred and announced that he would not be a part of any future mixtapes. This time, Game wasn't interested in the peace treaty and was ready for war. In June, he performed at Hot 97 Summer Jam in New York and took shots at 50 Cent and G-Unit on stage. The Game had his friends dress up in a gorilla suit and a rat costume with G-Unit shirts and run around the stage while the rest of his crew pretended to beat them up. Then, later that night, the Game introduced his new catchphrase, G U Not. He also threatened to knock out Tony Yayo and Lloyd Banks the next time he saw him. So now it's a serious beef and not just sneak disses. Not long after Summer Jam, the Game dropped a new mixtape called You Know What It Is Volume 3, which featured his legendary 50 Cent diss track called 300 Bars and Runnin'. The song is one 14-minute verse where Game tried to destroy 50's career with bars like, "You sell records, but a G you not. Acting big on the radio, to me you not. You can ask Mr. C who hot. Tony Yayo, I bet 10 G's you flop. Run up on that new 300C you got." 50 Cent responded by dropping a video for Piggy Bank where he made fun of the Game. The song had a shout out to the Game because it was recorded before they had issues, but in the video, the Game was animated to look like Mr. Potato Head wearing a headband that says Wanksta. Wanksta was a term 50 made up to describe a wannabe gangster. It was from a song he wrote about Ja Rule, but now 50 felt like the Game also fit the nickname. That sparked a wave of back and forth disses from both sides. A few months later, the Game dropped a mixtape called Stop Snitching, Stop Lying, which was aimed at 50 for allegedly snitching after he was shot 8 times. 50 clapped back in February 2006 with his first official diss track against the Game called Not Rich, Still Lying. On the song, 50 pretended to be the Game rapping, 50 calling me crazy, I might be, just maybe. I'm gangsta, I'm crippin', Damu too, I'm trippin'. Fuck 50, fuck Dre, fuck NWA. Man, I'm Hurricane Gang. Damn, this nigga changed. I brought the West back, I write the best raps. But what about Snoop? Snoop shit ain't all that. By that point, the Game had already left Aftermath and signed a deal with Geffen Records, another label owned by Interscope. After Game started the G U Not campaign, Dre made some calls and had him transferred to another label owned by the same company. Dre and the Game still had a good relationship, but 50 was the bigger artist, and Dre knew that he couldn't have them both on the label. So, Dr. Dre stayed loyal to G Unit and forced the Game off Aftermath Records. 50 continued taking shots at the game and photoshopped a picture of the game in a thong for the cover of his new mixtape, G-Unit Radio Part 21, Hate It or Love It. The Photoshop pic started a rumor that the game used to work as a male stripper before becoming a rapper, and fans believed it for years. But even though 50 continued to clown him, the game actually tried to squash the beef again. In September 2006, Game did an interview with Angie Martinez and said that he was willing to talk things out with 50 and figure it out as grown-ups. But 50 wasn't interested and didn't respond to the invitation. A few days later, the Game went on Power 106 and said that his offer was only valid for one more day, but 50 never responded. In November, Game dropped his second album, Doctor's Advocate. The project was a huge success and debuted at #1 on Billboard charts, selling over 350,000 copies in the first week. The Game was on a mission to prove he didn't need 50 Cent or Dr. Dre to sell records, and the album's success showed he could stand on his own. He also suggested in a few songs that his beef with 50 was over. After that, everything started to get cold. The Game didn't seem interested in keeping the beef going, and 50 just stopped responding. G-Unit was also having some drama after 50 dropped Young Buck from the group live on Hot 97, the same way he did with the Game. By 2009, Game was ready to officially end the beef. In an interview with MTV News, he claimed that Michael Jackson reached out to personally try and solve his issues with 50 Cent. Michael couldn't help, but Game still apologized to 50 and took responsibility for his actions. The Game also apologized to Dre and Jimmy Iovine and said that he wished he got a chance to continue working with Aftermath. Game even said that he and 50 were a legendary duo like Method Man and Redman, an iconic Def Jam duo from the 90s. So the Game was ready to let the beef go and maybe even get back in the studio together. But 50 was still not interested. A few days later, Tony Yayo spoke for G-Unit and said they were not accepting any apologies from the Game.
Game is bipolar, man. Like, one day he's this way, on the next day he's the next.
Days later, there were rumors that Game had dissed G-Unit again on stage at a show in Australia. 50 dropped his fourth album, Before I Self-Destruct, a few months later, and on the track, So Disrespectful, he called out the Game directly, rapping, "Come on, Game, you will never be my equal. I'm what you never gon' be. I'm in that tax bracket you never gon' see." Everyone could see that 50 wasn't letting it go, but that didn't stop the Game from trying to squash it again. In November 2010, he reached out to 50 on Twitter and said he was willing to end the beef with a long phone call, but once again, 50 didn't respond. 2 years later in 2012, 50 dropped a song called My Life with Eminem and Adam Levine, where he dissed the Game and Young Buck and rapped, "I try to help niggas get on. They turned around and spit right in my face, so Game and Buck both can suck a dick." 50 later said the verse was written 2 years before, and that he didn't have any hate toward the Game anymore, but that didn't stop Game from responding with his own diss track. Tony Yayo said that Game was always going back and forth between dissing them and wanting to be friends, and the situation in 2012 proved he was right. After 50 dropped My Life, the Game clapped back with another diss, but then the next year, he tried to get the entire G-Unit crew back together again. When asked about it in an interview on Power 106, 50 claimed that the Game had always used G-Unit for clout. According to 50, every time his career was slowing down, the Game decided to diss him. But since that wasn't working anymore, the Game decided to switch up his strategy and try to revive G-Unit. But according to 50, that wasn't gonna work either. Not long after that, the Game basically proved his point by dropping a mixtape called OKE, Operation Kill Everything, where he dissed G-Unit again. On the song Hollywood, Game raps, "Reunite with G-Unit, bitch, fuck 50. G-Unit eventually reunited and went on tour, but the Game was obviously not invited. 50 and the Game never squashed it, but for the last 10 years, the beef definitely cooled off. It's clear that there's still tension, but they mostly stopped dissing each other in songs and interviews. Even though 50 said he didn't have a problem with the Game anymore, he still didn't want the rest of G-Unit thinking he's a friend. In 2016, the Game took a picture with Lloyd Banks after they saw each other in Dubai. 50 ended up reposting the photo with a long, angry caption where he took shots at Lloyd for being disloyal. The caption said, "What do you see when you look at this picture? I see confusion. I'm not sure if it's just me. I'm a Cancer. Shit don't get old with me. I never ask for trouble, but I really don't have a problem with it. I'm different. The question isn't how I feel about it, but how does Lodi Mac feel about it? Some shit is just better off left alone." Lodi Mac was a G-Unit affiliate who was murdered after the Game's former manager, Jimmy Henchman, ordered the hit. 50 later deleted the post, but he clearly felt betrayed that Lloyd was chilling with one of his enemies. Then surprisingly, 50 Cent and the Game seemed to finally end their beef a few months later. They were both spotted hanging out together at the Ace of Diamonds strip club in LA. Game even made it official by hopping on the mic and telling the crowd it was all love. He said, "I fuck with 50. What happened? That shit was 12 years ago. Niggas ain't on that shit. Drink your motherfucking effing." Ain't nobody on that old shit. But 50 Cent's relationship with Lloyd Banks was never the same. Lloyd left G-Unit in 2018, and 50 later confirmed they were no longer on good terms. Even though there are a few different reasons for their fallout, many people believe it all started when Lloyd took the picture with the gang. The beef may have officially ended in 2016, but that doesn't exactly mean the Game and 50 Cent are cool. They still don't have much of a relationship, and every once in a while, they'll randomly take shots at each other on social media. When Dr. Dre performed at the Super Bowl halftime show in 2022, he brought out Snoop Dogg, Eminem, Kendrick Lamar, and 50 Cent. It was a huge moment for hip-hop, but many fans felt like Dre should have also invited the Game. The halftime show was in California, so it would have been legendary for the Game and 50 to have been on stage together, plus the fact that the Game was a California rapper. But Dre must have known that there was still tension because he only invited 50. The Game talked about how he felt during a recent interview and said he was hurt that he was left out. His issue with 50 wasn't that serious anymore, and it would have been an epic moment for them to all reunite at the Super Bowl. But 50 was not about to miss an opportunity to clown the Game. After winning an Emmy for the Super Bowl performance, 50 posted a photo of the award and wrote, "I just won my Emmy award for the Super Bowl halftime show. LOL. That alone may have not seemed like a diss, but right after, he posted a photo of the Game and wrote, "No caption needed," before quickly deleting it. The Game responded by also reposting the photo of 50 and wrote, "No caption needed. Hashtag spicy ass nigga. Hashtag what's your eyebrow doing? LOL. Hashtag your tie blown in the wind. LOL. 50 then clapped back by clowning the Game for not being invited to the halftime show and only selling 18,000 records with his recent album, Drillmatic. The Game responded by dissing 50 on stage at a show in Houston and called him a bitch. 50 then shared the video and wrote, "Oh no, you making me nervous. Now you know it's not safe around me when I'm nervous. LOL." So, no matter how many times they claim to have ended the beef, it's only a matter of time before they spark it back up. Including mixtapes, guest verses, and radio freestyles, 50 and Game combined have recorded over 100 diss tracks about each other. Even though it's created some legendary moments in rap, who knows how many more classic records there could have been if 50 Cent and the Game just decided to put it all aside and work together. But some people just can't get along, and at this point, it doesn't seem like the beef will ever really end.